Diana Powell from Wirral Unplugged. Thank you. And over to you, Diana.
Well, thank you so much for having me to speak tonight. It's been so nice to be able to be a part of the Merseyside Green Map and to utilize how the information it has for one of our projects over the summer. And so I'm very grateful to be asked to speak today. My name is Dr. Diana Powell, and I am originally not from this country, but I've lived on the Wirral for about 6 years and about 10 years in Liverpool before then. The organization I run, as Margaret said, is called Wirral Unplugged. And so today I've been asked to talk a little bit about how we got it started and some tips that we learned. So this is a very down-to-earth, informal way of looking at our organization, but also kind of hopefully an encouragement to you so that whatever stage that you're at in the development of your organization or your business, you can relate to some aspect of our origin story. So Miriam, if you would start with the first slide. So our name is Wirral Unplugged, and we started almost 3 years ago now as a group who were responding to community concerns. We had a lot of parents who were concerned about their children's screen time, as well as what their children had access to. So not from a negative perspective, but from they wanted them to be able to read more, to see more, to experience more. And the more I talked about my experiences, the fact that I had lived in several different countries besides the UK and the US, it gave them ideas about, amongst a small group of families, about what we could be doing. So we started off there. We focused very much on social justice and eco-friendliness and culture and creativity. So a lot around the sustainable development goals. If you've looked at those, I think those are a really good guide for what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that successful they can be. And the reason that we work with such a wide age group is because we know that statistically, most children have a phone by the time they're 11. And we also know that for family solutions, finding something together that they can do that's offline is often challenging. So parents really appreciate the fact that we offer solutions to help them have some screen-free time. And we do that in a variety of ways, but the two key ways we do that is through activity boxes and through screen-free events and competitions. I want to go to the next slide. I just laughed because on my screen that red color is a lot less in your face, so I apologize. The November 2018 to 2019 was really the pilot of what we were doing. During that time, we had started as just a volunteer group working in a community area, working in a specific location. But as we went along, we realized we had both enough people who were interested in the concept and also enough volunteers. So as I went along, I was learning a lot about the third sector. I said that my name is Dr. Powell, and I worked at the university before here. And I think whenever you change roles and go into a new sector, you start off with a very, like you have a lot of gaps in your knowledge. And it's fair to say that I continually am reminded of the gaps in my knowledge, but I also look for ways to solve those. And I think the beginning, when we were testing things out, that was one of the ways to really understand more about the third sector, establish a team. We learned a lot by trial and error. So we kind of came up with our pattern of how our events went by trying out different things, talking to a lot of people. And like it says there, we were building up a base. So that's one of our activities. We had quite good attendance and we were getting good feedback from parents. So that's the sort of start. If we go to the next slide. the next phase, it's quite interesting because the phases are quite distinct. We became a CIC, which is a community interest company, for those of you who haven't. Not to some confusion, but there are a lot of CICs on the Wirral and in Liverpool that and the work that they do is charitable. We moved location from one place in Bevington to the library, where we established quite a good relationship. We recruited more diverse volunteer teams. So we had volunteers with disabilities that were regularly helping us. And then we also were able to recruit a lot of specialist volunteers to give talks. So we had someone in on hibernating. We had the New Ferry Water Park, not New Ferry Water Park, Port Sunlight Water Park person in on bugs. And for instance, we had the Confucius Institute come in on China. So it was a time where we could build upon the model that we had developed and grow it further. And I guess I'm a really ambitious person, even though I don't expect perfection. I usually, like, there's several times in this PowerPoint where I say, like, don't overdo it. But that's a flaw of mine. And my learning point was definitely that every week of changing topics and having volunteers and having a 2-hour activity session with food and drinks and everything, and of course biking everything there, was quite challenging. So I think if I had to do this section over again, I think I would limit the events, but it did provide such a great opportunity for us while we were there. And the third stage, really, so the next slide. I've put down that challenges can be magical. One of the really great things, and I'm sure that some of you who grew during the pandemic, it's a lot easier to respond and be innovative. And when we knew we were going into lockdown, we asked parents how we could continue to support them with activities for their child's well-being, for their well-being, and for screen-free time. And they were really positive about our ideas, and we called it the Fairy Troll Post. And that started almost a week or two after the actual lockdown. So we had a very quick turnaround time, but essentially we used research-based categories for how we were going to develop the post. And what's really interesting that came out of it is that we developed an even closer relationship with families. So parents would write us letters, or children would write us letters in the voices of the fairies or dragons or trolls. And I would, or a student would, write back in those voices, and we would kind of continue a dialogue about probably from the beginning that we should be trying to, like, crafting is an area that is often overlooked when we think about green activities for children. And from the beginning, I've been trying to recycle and things, but definitely during lockdown, we got in touch with a lot more suppliers and made contacts with people who had green paint companies, or people who locally carved wood and could make shapes for us to paint. And we really diversified between sustainable businesses and recycling, as well as kind of approaching social justice. So for instance, we had a South Africa week both years, and we talked about Nelson Mandela and Mandela Day and how that's celebrated. And we showed, we connected those. Really got an opportunity during this time to both grow closer to families and also expand our delivery. We had students volunteering from Cyprus in lockdown and Poland in lockdown. So the idea that volunteering ended was actually the opposite for me. I ended up with a lot more volunteers because I was able to convert it to an online version of volunteering. And then for the delivery part, I got bicycle volunteers along with myself to deliver around the world, and the rest to put in the post. So you would think that I got really fit, but I seem to have balanced that out with just being sat still on the computer. So as far as what I took from this kind of time about the challenge is that I determined I've got really strong connections with the university, really strong connections with students, and I know how that's what they said experience was that even though sometimes their connection was on Zoom, so for instance, some of the students led a woodland fairy fiesta remotely, they really enjoyed both connecting with each other and connecting remotely during this time. So if you're wondering what that little boy's doing, we did it. Each one of our weeks has a physical activity, a strategic game, a craft, and a food. And he's doing one of the games, and he's a bee, and that's his pot of pollen. And he's supposed to stick his face in and get a candy out from the from the cheesy what's it or whatever. So if we go to the next slide. So I guess my first top tip that I was, kind of asked for is to capitalize on your uniqueness. I've always had too much creativity for my own good, and I'm always the person who ends up leading the party games or drawing the card, or I was a teacher before this, so definitely teaching in classes. But it's been really lovely to take what I'm good at and fill in those gaps. First, through just direct help with the community. But then I started getting this summer commissions from other third sector groups to fulfill certain things for them. So being able to use that skill in a positive way. I guess getting to know others, because people, especially in this network, have been absolutely lovely. I've gotten a free bicycle, free bike trailer. I've had my bike serviced before. I mean, if you need help with something, or if you want to collaborate on something, especially in the third sector, but also I find with small owners of businesses that people are really willing to work with you and collaborate. And the last point is very much for myself as well. To explain the pictures very briefly, we had a Spanish with Ellen Day on the bottom left-hand side, and that is the box they got for making tapas. And we put face stickers on the lemon and garlic, and we gave them an apron and spices, and the children cooked at home, but they also had like bingo and a Spanish story, and it was great. It was a student who took Spanish. He had had to design a city, and he decided that Godzilla was missing from the city, so his mother printed him off Godzilla and stuck it in amongst them, which I loved. And then the little girl below him is we had activities during Hygge and hibernating week that had to do with den building and feeling cozy. So her and her mom decided to wrap her up as a, I don't know, sausage, a tortilla, and experience the coziness. So it's been lovely to find out different people's ideas. So if you want to go to the last slide. We are happy to work with others, and we are happy to chat with you or help if we can. So please stay in touch, and yeah, I hope that this has been helpful. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I know it's a really wide audience of what I was hitting, but I tried to explain where we were coming from, kind of some of the challenges that we encountered, and also what tips we have from that. So thank you for listening to me.